I never wanted to be anything else but a musician.
There were a lot of bands in Prince George at that time.
It was just kind of the norm for bands to work, and there was lots of work for bands.
It was the best time of my life.
I loved it.
Northern Rhythm, an original production by CKPG-TV.
I remember hearing my older brother's music, which was like Bobby V in the early 60s. And then when the Beatles came along, I really got interested in music because it seemed to, I don't know, I just seemed to more identify with what they were doing.
Listening to my dad singing little house parties and stuff like that. I still have his guitar hanging on my wall over there, yeah.
My dad was the kind of the main center of music in the household, and we would sit around and sing songs and listen to him sing because he was a very good singer.
I was kind of young when I got to Prince George. I was 13 and I still was just learning songs, and I'd go to sleep with earphones on and make sure I try to memorize the songs.
Well, I started playing in the summer of '69. I know it sounds like a song, but it's true in my case. And that's when I had my first band. Some guys from school got together and we learned how to play, you know, cohesively together.
I first started learning how to play guitar when I was 13. We always grew up with music in the household. I mean, Dad, he was big into Wilf Carter, Hank Snow, Merle Haggard, and Johnny Cash. Like, we didn't really have a record player per se. A lot of it was by radio and just basically him singing.
When Dad played, I remember a mouth organ accordion. And then Garth started playing, and all of a sudden there was a band being formed. Laurel met Kelly, Kelly liked guitar, and away it went, family band.
Some family member, I haven't been able to find it, have an old Super 8 of me 8 years old with my Roy Rogers guitar. Didn't really start playing solid until Garth and I started playing together about 1968, 69, something like that. I think we called ourselves the Reflections of Light or some silly thing back then. We played at a dance at the Prince George Senior Secondary, a Halloween dance. We played at Lakewood Junior Secondary.
It's just been in the DNA of the family because of Dad.
I got to stumble upon a guitar with one of my cousins who's just like a brother. We ended up finding a guitar in a closet that was his dad's, and it just kind of became this relationship where he would have the guitar for a week and then I would go to visit him and he would teach me what he learned, and then I'd have the guitar for a week and I would learn something and he'd come visit me and I would teach him.
When I was growing up, my parents listened to a ton of music in the car, so it was kind of like the road trip sing-alongs.
After I got my first guitar, it was like a lot of blues, and I didn't really know the bands, I don't think. And then I heard AC/DC, and then I think for probably 6 or 7, maybe even more years, I just AC/DC.
Much music back in the day was huge. They played like everything, so it was pretty cool where you could listen to like hip hop and like screamo.
I was really into 80s metal and a lot of early grunge stuff, and that really kind of forged where my style went.
When you went out on a Friday or Saturday night, you expected to hear a band. I mean, that was just the norm, right?
There was lots of times that we were playing upstairs in the Legion, and then there was a dance downstairs. Then there was lots of times we were playing in a big dance downstairs, and there was a band playing upstairs, and we'd be back and forth listening to bands, and it was good, and stuff like that, and it was good.
You could play any weekend you ever wanted to. I mean, there was the Generator, there was the Rock Pit, there was the PG Hotel, there was the Mac Hotel, the Canada Hotel took a band, the Inn at the North had 2, plus they held other functions like called the Inn Boogie, and that was like at least twice a month there was big shows there.
Weddings were special because you did the first waltz, right? So that was a part of their life for the rest of their life, and you were a part of that.
The time I entered it, it was well in the culture of Prince George. A lot of places to play, cabarets and supper clubs, and like I say, the Rolla Dome, and some of the clubs in town had 6 nights a week.
It was always busy. Yeah, back 70s, 80s, right up to the 90s, you couldn't get a chair close to the bands half the time. Everybody was going out.
We couldn't wait for the weekend, to go play, right? When you went out to a bar or wherever you went, there was a band.
Mardi Gras was a big thing, you know. They had the Snowman Stomp, and they had the Mr. Mardi Gras. Like, those are all big dances.
Places like the Inn of the North, they had their 770 room, and they would bring in road bands. My wife and I went out one night, and there was a guy, kind of a tribute band doing the Doobie Brothers in there, right? It was pretty amazing.
We used to play New Year's Eve out at Giscombe Hall. That place was always packed. People went there to dance. Floor was always full, right from song one.
It was just kind of the norm for bands to work, and there was lots of work for bands.
Didn't have a problem getting a booking. You were turning down more bookings than you were getting.
Nightlife in Prince George back then was very active. Downtown Prince George was a hub for nightlife. I mean, we had, so many bars and pubs, and a couple of main big cabarets were going down there, and then some of the service clubs like the Legion and the Elks. They all had live music. And for the population of Prince George at that time, for the amount of music that was out there, it was pretty phenomenal. You could just keep going all night and listen to a different band on every block almost, right?
There was local bands, plus there was the bands that, like the A circuit for clubs, like that played the Rock Pit, and like bands that were really good, right? Never really had to go far. I mean, the work was, it was right there. Like, I mean, in Mackenzie, when the pulp mills were having a thing, a 6-piece rock band, we'd go there, and they would pay $3,000 that night for us to play, plus our accommodations to stay and everything. Yeah, it was good then.
When we started playing back in the early 70s, you could actually make a living doing it. We were making more than the guys in the mills. Nowadays, don't quit your day job. I guess people had a different approach and attitude in the 70s. Society was looser in those days, and just you weren't worried about the future so much.
I'd like to see more venues and more opportunities for younger bands, but it's hard. It's a hard gig to keep it together, to have the patience with each other, and to do it right, like, especially nowadays.
A lot of the neighborhood halls, like the Pineview Hall and the Eagles, so like all these clubs, there was big massive changes in their structures too, and they weren't necessarily putting on the big dances anymore.
The decline in places to play started, I would say, in the mid-90s, because they brought in really strict drinking and driving laws. And then they brought in no smoking, and it really curtailed the club life. Because people thought, it's not worth going out anymore, it's too many, if you get caught after a couple of beers, you could lose your license.
We've played a couple dances where our local constabulary was sitting right there at the door waiting for people to come out. And people said, God, I'm going to stay home. So they have house parties. They tried neighborhood pubs, and then they were standing down the street from the neighborhood pubs. And it wasn't deliberate to try and get rid of the music. They were generally thinking of people's safety, but that part of it, which drove people to stay home.
Well, I think the biggest change was when the, not pointing fingers or anything, but like when the DJs came into play, and then karaoke was coming very strong. There was a focus moving towards that recorded music over the bands, right? Like if you were putting on a wedding or something like that, then the focus was, instead of hiring a band, we would maybe look at the DJ service, right?
I do prefer to go and listen to live bands for sure.
You can't beat live entertainment. It's fun. It's fun for the band. It's fun for the people.
There's an energy to live performance that even if you don't love the genre per se, like, you get it if you go to the show. It's surreal to play live for sure, and especially to play live to a receptive audience that are all excited that you're playing,
Every band has a following, right? So those people come out and they have fun, and they bring their friends, and they bring their friends, and
It's too bad the music scene died, because it was so much fun. I would have still been playing the pubs, and I still do on occasion, but it was almost every week you were out at the pubs. And it feels funny to sit at home at night and not go downtown and play. It feels very strange.
Having venues is, I think, a big thing, is creating venues for people to go play at.
My generation, we all grew up on Rock Band and Guitar Hero, so it was cool to be in a band, and it was something you aspired to do. And then I think that there was none of that for a long time. There was no cultural moment that made you want to pick up a guitar. And I think that's starting to come back, where playing instruments is cool again.
It's really interesting that in the last year, especially after COVID, you're seeing younger people take up bands and younger people want to do live music and not accepting a DJ and wanting to be out of the club. I think it's awesome that we have so many young bands right now that maybe aren't playing as regularly as they should be, but I think that's because they don't have their foot in the door with those connections yet. And that's something we've talked about as a band is we're now the older guys and we're now the experienced musicians, and we need to help the next generation get their foot in the door, because a band that is brand new, that's never played anywhere, isn't gonna get into the big club. But if we can use our position to have an opening act and all of our fans come out and see a super cool band that we love, that's gonna give them that push up to the next level to where they can get their foot in the door at that venue that they've been dreaming about.
I think that it'll take some time to rebuild it, but it's not impossible. Nothing's impossible, right?
I see just this like broad range of music that's happening, and I think that's probably what's gonna really save the music scene, because I feel like for a long time Prince George was very segregated in these are the rock guys, these are the folk kids, there's a little bit of a hip hop following over here, there's a bit of a rave crowd, and it's all been very different. But the younger generation is just experimenting with so many different sounds that I'm really hoping it breaks down those walls and opens up the doors for the rave kid to go, yeah, sure, I'll go to the rock show. And the rock kid to go, yeah, sure, I'll go to the rave, and everything in between.
Northern Rhythm, an original production by CKPG TV.
Dad, he was such a stage personality. The early days he played locally here, places like the Roundup.
There was lots of dances that he would get up and do a stint for about an hour and do a lot of the old Hank Snow and Wilf Carter and do some yodeling and stuff like that.
We played with him. He was the lead singer for quite a while, and then sons and the daughters took over kind of thing, and we took it over.
The band's first drummer was Brad. He was my biggest influence with country, a very soft, gentle drummer. He was a hippie type character, long hair. He didn't fit in with the rest of them on short hair and cowboy hats, right? So he was kind of cool.
I got pretty lucky when I moved to Prince George. A month later, I got hired with the Westernaires.
We put an ad in the paper looking for a singer, and he answered the ad.
Found it at the laundromat. There was a band looking for a lead singer. I peeled the number off and I gave them a call, and they hired me basically from the first time I went and had a band practice with them.
It's kind of like a sports team, right? You're all in the field together, and you're working together in unison to try to make one thing happen. And when it does, it's quite the feeling.
Garth and Wendy both sang, which helped me out until I got my foot into learning a lot of songs.
You definitely get a vibe from the crowd, whether you should be doing something or shouldn't be doing something, and whether you should go to a fast song or a slow song or whatever to keep people on the dance floor.
Favorite thing is watching a lot of people dance, for sure. That's my highlight.
We would go like from literally ending one song to the next song, to the next, to the next, to the next, and we would do that for a whole set.
If they weren't dancing, there was nobody on the floor, we were doing something wrong, right? You were always kind of looking for that feedback from the audience to see if you're on the right track or not.
Andy would get a little note thrown on the floor, play this song kind of thing, and we would just pick it up and play a song. It was no big deal, right? 6 nights a week, work all day, play all night, work all day, play all night. Yeah, you had to love it to do it.
When we did our recording of our 2 songs, we definitely played those every night. Kelly wrote a song, I wrote a song. We rehearsed it for days and days and days, and finally got it to the point where, okay, we're good to go. Pretty cool, eh? 1983.
Something like a long time ago.
The band is playing an old country song.
It's our own stuff, it's original, we should put it on a record. And we all discussed it, and discussed the finances, and discussed the trip, and finally we said, yeah, let's do this.
That was a wicked trip. It was a quick trip. There was a lot of time spent in the studio. I don't think we expected that.
Everybody's gonna be excited. You never know what happens. If it takes off, great. If it don't, well, we did it.
We hunted down a studio in Edmonton, Damon Studios.
We were just awestruck because it was just, there was mics and this great big 24 channel board sitting there and all these lights going up and down and stuff like that. We're going, holy crap, what's this?
Gary was just great with us. He knew that we were green to the gills on what to do, and he spent a lot of time getting the setups all right. And
He got a little upset with us for a little bit because one of the songs we couldn't quite get the harmonies exactly the way he wanted it, but we wanted to do it, and he wanted to hire some singers to do it, and we said, no, we want to do it. And he said, well, okay, it's going to take extra time, but we'll do it.
took quite a few runs at it to get it to the point where Gary was saying, okay, we're good to go, thumbs up kind of thing, right?
I think we worked over 17 hours one day, and the next day we were kind of finishing up, and it might have taken us another 8, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in there. You know, I could be wrong an hour or 2, but it was a pretty long sessions for sure.
One guy behind a shield over here, another guy behind a shield over there. Well, we should be together, but no, you do your thing, and then we'll put it together.
We learned real quick how much work it took to put the 2 songs together.
We were busy, like it was 2 days solid, just straight recording.
It was a highlight of my life doing that.
The energy and the excitement was pretty awesome.
Once we listened to the record, we didn't even, oh, well, we sound good, you know.
Planes and time, leaving no room for our own romance.
It was great. I mean, that's the pinnacle, right? We did it.
We had 1,000 copies made of a 45, and we had some good feedback on the local radio stations and that kind of thing, so it was good.
The record actually made the Canadian Top 100. We were 99, but we still made it into the Canadian 100 country charts. I don't know how it made it, but it did.
And we were all very fortunate that we had spouses that loved what we did. A lot of us had shift work. Some people were driving trucks, some people were working on the railway. So, I mean, there's a lot of pieces to put together there, but it seemed that somehow we made it work.
We had the support, right? And that went not just from our spouses, it was our whole family. The sister that come to pretty near every dance that we played at, that kind of thing.
Like you say, it was part of helping us out with money, raising a family. I was married fairly young. My wife was my biggest supporter in the band, and she's still with me. Doing very well, yeah. So.
I worked for BC Rail for 32 years. I'd phone up Friday morning, okay, we're playing this weekend, Kelly. Yeah, okay, we got you off. It just got to be a thing, you know.
I wouldn't change anything as far as what we did and the experiences we had going through it all. I'm just blessed or thankful I was able to be a small part of it all, you know.
I wouldn't change it, no. It's a connection, right?
The biggest part as far as things go was tying together with my family, Garth's family, my wife, my children. We're all together.
It was the best time of my life.
Music will always be a part of our lives in whatever way it's going to be. It's a good thing. I mean, we still have it, right?
Garth said Eddie's like family. He is, right? That's the biggest thing I think is in this kind of environment is you have to have a connection with the people you're playing with or it is not going to work. Being together for so long, I think, was a big part of what we accomplished. I'd like to just say that the opportunity to get everybody together to talk about this has been a blessing, right? I hope that one day, maybe, we'll do it all again for a little gig, but we'll sit and practice for a while. But yeah, that's the future down the way. That's what I'm hoping for one day. Yeah.
Northern Rhythm, an original production by CKPG TV.
We were all from Bear Lake, and 3 of the guys had played in a band before, so I mean, the drummer and I was all new to us, So once we had all moved to town, we all worked together out at the sawmill out there, and so that we all started a band, And at the time, my girlfriend, she liked to sing and everything, so we thought, well, she could be the singer, but none of us could sing. We went out to Red Rock one night, and there was a band out there, and we heard, geez, we could do this. It was a roller-dome, yeah. The band was in the middle, and everybody danced around. It wasn't a licensed place, so if you were 15 or if you were 50, it didn't matter what, the age group was. We asked if we could play there on a Saturday night. She said, yeah, well, do you have a name? And we didn't have a name, and Richard says, well, I watched this movie the other night called Sweet Hostage. Okay, we played there about every weekend for a long time. Lead guitar player was Richard Turner. Darcy Hartford was on the drums. Shannon Tabert was the lead singer. And myself, Greg Orr, on the bass. That was the newer part of Sweet Hostage. I mean, the older part, back when Sweet Hostage first started, we had Dave Chennai on keyboards, Mickey Snychuk on bass guitar, Terry Trapp on drums, Richard on lead. At that time, I played the rhythm guitar, so. And then 3 of them left, and so then I picked up the bass. Darcy and I worked very well together, and Richard was a chunky guitar player, and we played every weekend. If it wasn't here, it was Mackenzie, Fraser Lake, Williams Lake. We did one on the Beaver Forest Road. We were asked to go out there, and we turned onto this road, and we had a 36-foot bus, loaded. It says go down this road, and there's a bridge, and we go, I don't know about this bridge, and Richard said, yeah, go. So we drove on the bridge. Down goes the bridge. There we sit. So we're wondering, what are we gonna do? Hey, around the corner come all these people, not a stitch of clothing on. They said, oh, you got problems here? Yeah. So okay, well, we'll go get a cat. And they came and got a cat, and they built the road. They pulled the bus out, and then we went and we played way up on a hill, and they were way down below, and they had all these lambs roasting around, and people just danced, and we were playing more or less to the stars, but they could hear us all down there, and you played the material that was kind of up to date back then. I mean, like I say, Pat Benatar and Toronto, and because we had a female singer, so I mean, we could pull all that stuff off. We'd play Saturday night, we'd get home, that night with the bus. Sunday, we'd all show up there, unload, set up, Monday, practice till Friday, every night. And then load her up, and away we go again. For me, it wasn't bad at all, because, I mean, my wife was a singer, right? And, so our daughter, she rode in the bus with the other 2 kids, and we'd do a lot of outdoor stuff as well, right? They'd sleep in the bus, which was parked right beside the stage, and they just went to sleep with the sound of music. Like when we did the album, I mean, it didn't take very many takes because we didn't really make any mistakes because we played so much. And it was a shock when Richard said that he wanted to do it. I mean, a record? Come on, There was a guy, Larry Borisoff, he says, yeah, we can do this right here. And he came up and listened to us. And because we were in our familiar place and where we practiced and had our sound set perfect, he says, well, we'll do it right here. And we'll find a different place for the vocals and that. We ordered 5,000 copies. We thought, well, we'll try that. Well, within a week, they were all gone. So we ordered another 3,000, I think it was, and 545s. We were down to, I think we had about, 500 or 600 left when we did the benefit for Richard. We signed them all because everybody was still there with us, and then we sold the rest of them there, and they just went. We did a thing, I don't know if CKPG still has a record of it, but they used to play a song and with 2 different bands, and then people would phone in and vote for which song they liked the best. I don't know what song it was probably Midnight Rider. But we held it for 6 weeks, and we finally got beat out by the Fabulous Poodles. Yeah, on that thing. I'll remember that forever. We played a Christmas party in the Pine Center Mall in front of the Simpson Sears. It was a Simpson Sears Christmas party where the doors were at Simpson's and the dance floor went right to the food court because that's where the bathrooms were. So we had the biggest system there because Richard would rent everything B&B had. We played in the Bay, 6-piece rock band at the end of the escalator right there in the Hudson Bay, like where City Furniture is now. We played for because it was 317, I don't know. That's like where they used to sell the jeans and all that, you know, that was a big thing. We were promoting that right there in the middle of the jeans and the shirts, rocking it out, yeah. You can see in some of the pictures that I do have, I mean, we were all kind of almost all looking at each other just, okay, it's either, you know, we knew what was coming or we were all enjoying what was there. Or I was happy, hey, I'm in a rock band, you know, and I loved it. And if everybody's together and it all feels good and everything, then that's what it is, you know. Like, it doesn't have to be really fancy as long as it's tight. Now they have these smoke machines and stuff like that. Well, we were, you know, a little redneck when it come to that. So, I mean, we had a coffee can. We stood it right in front of the drummer there. And we had an extension cord plugged in there and wired to the thing. Put a little gunpowder on there. And then time for them to hit the button. Poof! And up she'd go. And, yeah, sometimes a little too much gunpowder. Yeah. Well, after the band split up, it split up due to the singer and I. You know, I was married to the singer. We split, so I just kind of went my own way, and I started driving truck for my friend Richard. And he came to me and he goes, "Hey," he says, "I know a couple guys that are looking for a bass player to go play on the road." I said, "Yeah, sign me out." So I went with them for 7 months, and yeah, about 7 months. And it was good fun. Like, I wouldn't have traded that for nothing. That was music back then, I guess, you know. I mean, it's all different now. And I mean, I listen to my son's band like crazy, right? You know, that's what it's all about.
Northern Rhythm, an original production by CKPG TV.
I haven't heard anything about that since then, you know, it just kind of was forgotten. What was it called? Grassroots. There, I'm just looking at the poster there. Yeah, Grassroots Music Festival. Some friends of mine, I went to school with the Harris family. They had property out in Salmon Valley, and the older brother, he had a shop called the Root Cellar. It was a hippie type shop. And we got talking one day and used to hang around there a bit, and he said, "Maybe we should do a festival out at the property." "Oh yeah, sure. You want to play? Sure." You know, so we just, nobody knew what they were doing. They advertised it and they had a lot of those posters out. A lot of people came to that little shop, so they saw it and they told their friends. A lot of it was word of mouth, eh? There used to be a little cafe at the end of the road, Salmon Valley, right by the bridge. And it was packed and they were running out of food because all these people at the festival. So, we need food, we need food. So somebody came with a huge bag of buns, a couple of bags, these huge garbage bags of buns. No butter, nothing, just, you know, everybody chewing on buns, you know, just anything, just to stay out at the festival and enjoy the music. And for something that wasn't organized that well, we're just flying by the seat of the pants, kind of. We had hundreds of people out there. I don't think there was a stage. I think we played right on the grass, so it was pretty up close and personal, you know, for the crowd and the band. I can't remember much about it because it's over 50 years ago, but I remember everything going quite smoothly. For, like I said, we didn't know what we were doing. None of us, you know, like organizing the festival or trying to keep a band together. But everybody had a good time and it was very well received. But I haven't heard much since. It was kind of like the festival that was forgotten. And of course, in years later, you had the Salmon Valley Music Festival in the early 90s. And it was out in that area. But I don't think a lot of people know that there was one in 1972. The main other member of Broken Hill, Don Kenzie, I met him playing with some other guys, just jamming. And we kind of hit it off and we thought we'd start a band. We got a friend of ours from school involved and various drummers along the way. Hard to hang on to a drummer. We were doing pop stuff like Gary Puckett, Union Gap, you know, pop stuff off the charts, kind of bubblegummy almost, just to get started, because it didn't require a lot of guitar soloing, so we were just learning. So that was easy to put together a song list. We built a good following, and we used to go around and see bands like Chilco and Nechako, which were more established than we were, and they were a little further along than we were. So we'd go there and glean ideas from them and watch them playing. So by the time we got to Vancouver, we had to kind of start all over again, but we did have some of the local guys helping us. The Commodore Ballroom, we played that. The band that hosted that gig, half of them were from Prince George, 6-cylinder. Half of those members were in the Chaco, and actually one from Chilco too. We started in 72, and we disbanded in 1980, after the Commodore gig actually. We were living in Kamloops for a little while at that point, and I moved up here and we kind of all went different directions. Still on good terms and everything, yeah, it's just we don't have much to do with each other. We don't have a lot in common anymore, you know. There was a couple of Kamloops members in there for a while when we lived in Kamloops. So we were kind of half Prince George Kamloops band. In the earlier 70s, middle 70s, we were from here and we worked out of here with all members from Prince George. I never wanted to be anything else but a musician. It's the only thing I know how to do. I do repair amplifiers, but that's connected to the music, to the business, and just love of music. This is the first professional picture we had taken. I think it was Wally West Studios that did it. It was done because we started working the clubs and we needed a poster. And the guy at PJ's hut, where we started our club life, he said, I know a guy that can, down at the photographers, and I'll tell him what we need. And he said, just get some matching suits. So we had matching Fortrell suits. You know, it's like plastic, right? Woven plastic. So when you're in a club and somebody drops their ashes, they're talking to you, cigarette, because everybody smoked in those days, it would burn a hole in your suit, you know. But there we are with our black Fortrell suits, matching, and that would be Alan Primus on the left, Carl Michaud, me, and Don Kenzie. Alan played bass and sang, Carl played drums, myself, guitar, lead guitar and vocals, and Don Kenzie, lead vocals and rhythm guitar. That's 50 years old, like probably to the month. I think it was early 74, so it's 50 years old. It's hard to believe, you know.
The Burden started in 2013. Really lucked out with finding the right bandmates early. The main two writers are me and my drummer, Devin. He likes to just send me drum ideas, which I kind of like because I have no idea what he has in mind with them and vice versa. So I can listen to a part that he might think should be like a pop punk song and I can make it really heavy, and then he can send me really heavy drums that I just make like a ballad out of. Remember our first show was really cool because we were kind of just getting off of our high school band train, so there was a little bit of hype still for us starting a new band. It was at a venue called Papa Yanni's. It literally closed the next day and nobody knew. We played the show, we're like, oh, I can't wait to do more shows here. It was kind of the first show that they threw. It's actually where the Black Clover is now. It was upstairs from there. Our first record, Modern Disease, was done in town with Connor Pritchard. It was months of, you know, weekends in and outs, and we were definitely very green. Two following releases were done ourselves. We actually recorded our own stuff and sent it off to our producer in Kelowna. With Terminal, we had the budget and availability to actually do it legit, so we all went to Kelowna and recorded, and the energy for that was awesome. I think it was 3 days in, our bassist caught COVID, so he was quarantined in the Airbnb while we were doing the record, unfortunately. I love the DIY aspect of the music scene and having like your own hands on it. When my first band, Fade in the Fallen, was starting out, I'd say the scene was pretty cool. There was just a ton of venues to play, so it wasn't just always at the same spot and oversaturated. And then I'd say like when the Burden started, and up until pretty recently, kind of went on a downturn for our genre. I remember there's one time we were doing this little tour and we were playing PG. We were coming back on a Monday and we're like, oh man, like we're all just so tired, we're all sick, and we're like, we're gonna play to, you know, 5 people on a Monday night. Let's do it, it'll be fun. And it was like 150 people on a Monday night and we're like, what is going on here? And then the last show we played was with our friends in Calling All Captains, and it was insane. It was Saturday, it was packed, it was probably sold out in Almanica. Every time we play a show, we're like, this is why we do this. This is so fun, and this is so fulfilling to everyone, us, the audience, and it's cathartic for sure. If I could, I would love for my daughter to pick up music. One of the coolest moments is she was born and we had a show the next day. I literally left the hospital, played the show just for our set, and like ran back to the hospital. So I can't wait to tell her that story. We were getting close to the due date and we're like, it's gonna be our luck that, like, you know, Kayla's going to have this baby. And obviously she's in active labor. I'm not going to come play the show. Everything went just incredibly well. And Kayla's like, you gotta do it. And I'm like, okay. It was almost like being in a high of like two different sides of life. You know, the music, creative thing I love to do, and this whole new world of being a father. So playing the songs just felt even more cathartic. It was such an emotional night, and it was just like a huge emotional release essentially. And it was our first local show back in 3.5 years. So just in general, it was an insane night.
Northern Rhythm, an original production by CKPG TV.
Studio 720 was kind of birthed by tragedy. We have a really interesting origin story in that our first show was actually our original bassist's funeral. So our original bassist was involved in a car accident. We had never played a show at that point. His family asked us to come to the funeral and play. We set up his bass with an amp, and we just kind of turned the amp on and let it hum.
You build this weird bond with people that you play with. Like, you're just kind of sitting in a room, playing instruments, looking at each other. You're not conversating. Maybe you chat between songs, but you just spend a lot of time just being with each other.
So I think just continuing on and driving forward is enough to honor Will. Everything started because of him.
I always think of him anytime I'm setting up, anytime I'm packing up my gear. I'm just like, what Will would do to be here right now. You know what I mean? Like, I should be super thankful for this, right? So.
Since then, there's been many lineup changes, but really the core of 720 has always remained the same. I'm referring to Colton and I. We've never really dove into side projects or taken anything on. It's been this band and only this band for us for almost 10 years now.
Playing with JP's been great. I mean, he's always been a really good front man.
It's just a feeling of total control when you hit that zone and people are moving and people are singing and they're making eye contact with you and they can't stop watching because they're wondering what's gonna happen next or what song you're gonna play next.
I remember before meeting JP, me and Ryan would play music together and we would sit there and we'd watch these YouTube videos of these really wicked singers with these awesome voices and we'd be like, oh, we just need to find like a guy like that, you know? And it was like, it just became this thing that was like, yeah, maybe it'll happen. And then it was like, no, it's not happening. None of us could sing.
I was trying to be a drummer in town. One day I just randomly looked at Kijiji and the first ad I saw was singer wanted rock band or something like that. So I ended up typing him out a message just saying, hey, my name's JP, I can sing, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And he said, okay. And he just sent me a list of 6 songs and I burnt a CD. That's how long ago this was. I burnt a CD and just sat in my car and sang them over and over and over and over and over, probably for like 2 or 3 hours a day for a week until leading up to this audition that I had.
None of us could really hold down the position of the singer, you know? And then one day JP just came in and banged out all the songs and was like, oh my God, it happened. We got our guy.
I got into the room, there's 4 other guys there that I had never met. None of them really said anything or introduced themselves. We just started playing and we got through all the songs and it was dead quiet. And I was so insecure. I was like, oh man, I didn't make it. I didn't make it. They're gonna tell me that they'll call me next week or something. And I just remember Ryan, our old guitarist, just kind of looking around the room and going, so you wanna play next week? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I left and I remember just screaming in my car being like, yes! I made it! I made it! And it was just like the coolest feeling in the world that it finally happened. Yeah, I'm really thankful that I took the 15 seconds to answer that ad. After the funeral, we got together, decided to start practicing, and we got our first show at a cafe that's no longer existing inside of PG called the Black Donkey Cafe. And we didn't have a name until the day before the show. And for some reason, I just kept like obsessing on studio. And I was putting words before it, words after it, words before it, words after it, and we just couldn't find something that we would all agree on. And Colton was obsessing on 720 because it was the second time around as the band. 2 full rotations. It was the second time of the band coming back after Will's passing. And so we just jammed them together and went, okay, we're Studio 720. We'll figure out another name afterwards. And we played a show, and it went so well that there was so much hype around town about, have you guys heard Studio 720? You see the Studio 720 show? And we just had to accept that. At that point, the name was established. We just have to keep rolling with it after that.
We're fun, we're a little wacky, we're high energy. JP's described me as his little show lion up there. Just trying to keep me at bay.
We've put some bar rooms to work, to say the very least. We've definitely taken advantage of our 15 minutes of fame when we can, and we have a good time.
I'll go out there usually once a night, go dance on the tables and go get a close-up with some of the fans. I grew up, I had the little battery-powered amps, so I'd be skateboarding around my yard playing guitar.
I remember walking into the B&B once and I said, yeah, he'd like to try out a guitar. So, okay, then he brings me this guitar and Colton plays with it or something, and then all of a sudden he starts going on this, and the guy looked at me and said, oh, we got to get a different guitar. He picked it up pretty quick.
One thing I will say that I'm like very thankful of is that he never really pushed it on me. He always told me as a kid, like you know, you should really do it. All my best memories, you know, was like showing me his photos and stuff, and I was like, he's like, this is a cool life. Like, I think you'd like it. I remember that very vividly as a kid.
Nellie's has always been a really special location for us. That was where we played our very first show. We had 12 songs ready. We were playing in Colton's dad's basement, Greg, and he came downstairs and went, well, what are you guys playing? And we showed him our set list, and he said, you got to get at least 15 more songs. And we had like a week and a half until the show. And so we learned 15 more songs and ended up playing the show with all of these songs that we had literally just learned, because we were under the impression that a 3-hour show was the regular. And so we got up there and we played 3 45-minute sets, and it went great. And then after that, we started going to shows in town and realizing nobody plays 3-hour shows. It's just the old guys. That was the norm for them.
We got to go on stage at the Alibis and play with the dancers. That was really cool.
Ribfest was absolutely huge. I don't know what the exact numbers were, but I heard the day that we performed, there was 2,000 people in attendance. I have a really cool picture from that day with myself and 2 other members that are no longer in the band, and it's just a photo from behind us, and it's just a sea of people. I still look back at that and go like, holy moly, we made it. That's my moment. That is the moment that sticks with me forever when I think of this band. One of the names we used for a very short time, for 2 weeks before Studio 720, was Sweet Hostage. We had talked to Greg and he said, that's great, you guys should use it. So we did, and then a couple weeks later he changed his mind and he's like, never mind, you guys should get your own name. And he's always been kind of a guiding force for us.
I actually did a Halloween gig with those guys at the Westwood Pub. I said, well, since I'm dressing up, yeah, I'll do it. You know, they don't know who I am, but yeah, and I had a blast. I just had a blast, yeah.
I mean, it was a little bit intimidating having him up there and keeping up with us, and maybe even like more than us. Like I'm all sweaty. Look over at JP, he's all sweaty and tired, and my dad's in a Blues Brothers suit, just holding it down. It was a little bit eye-opening, being like, wow, this guy's still got it.
When we were practicing downstairs, he was plugged in upstairs, playing along with us. So sometimes we would mess up a song and stop, and we'd still hear him going boom, 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 boom. And then he'd stop, and we'd be like, oh, Greg's playing. And so when we would have those instances where, you know, our bassist couldn't show up or whatever reason, he was usually the first guy we think of. And that still to this day sometimes, you know, Greggy's got us, we're good.
They held a surprise birthday party for me, my 60th, and they were playing it. And I got to play a set with them, and yeah, it was good fun. I didn't want it to end.
Controlled chaos is a big thing for us in that we want everybody to just let loose and forget that they exist outside of this room and just letting everything happen. And it's just a good memory to have for the next time.
I definitely don't see an end in sight. Let's just say that.
We have a whole lot lined up for this year, getting out of our comfort zone, new merch, new places, new music, new people, new faces to melt.